Well, welcome everyone to the ACC Fellow in Training California branch sort of session that we're having this evening. We are extremely fortunate to be joined by Sarah Catherine Gutierrez tonight, who's an expert on the unique financial challenges that physicians face. Sarah Catherine is an instructor at the Department of Surgery at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences and has spent years educating physicians about paying off student debt, creating a financial plan, and tax efficient investing so that they can build a life and career with security and freedom. So thank you so much for spending your evening with us, and we look forward to learning more.
Thank you so much for having me. And for anybody watching this recording, just know that at the end of this, you want to make sure that you don't miss this. You can scan a QR code and get some pretty great resources that go with the presentation. You're going to be able to get Pay Yourself First guide for physicians that we've written. That is basically, it's a non-budget budget for physicians, an actual budgeting sheet that you can do where you can start plugging in your numbers for when you start making the big doc pay, as we call it, when you get out of training. And then some more kind of extra reading along the terms, along the lines of what we're going to be talking about today, which is on saving, figuring out how much you're going to pay yourself first, and then exploring the tax efficient waterfall. So before I get into the specifics there, I'd like to go ahead and start with the disclosures. So I do own a financial firm. So it's very important that you understand, and we are mostly designed for physicians. And so I am very passionate about what we do. We run financial plans for physicians. And a lot of people assume that we want to run financial plans for very rich physicians, which is what most financial advisors are wanting to do. They want to get you after you've saved your first million. We want to get you as young and broke as you can be because we really believe in doing a financial plan at the very beginning. So the important thing is, though, that we have removed a lot of conflicts of interest that are very typical in the financial industry. I don't sell any financial products. If you want to buy insurance, you can't buy it from me. So this is not a pitch. And I also do not manage assets very uniquely. I believe that people can manage them on their own. So that's a little bit of just a short little clip about what we do. But I am passionate about education. I'm passionate about you getting the right financial information at the right time when you need it. I cannot imagine a better time than where you all are right now to be doing the work that we're going to do in this presentation. I do promise a boring-free zone. I think Jessie has volunteered. She's going to raise her hand if it starts to get boring. She will let me know and we will move quickly. Okay, so what I want to start with is a notion that might seem a little counterintuitive because everybody that's on this or going to be listening to this, you have been top of your class. You are the smartest people out there, and you know that harder work and more complexity sometimes yields better results. That is not the case when it comes to finances. The simpler that you make things, the better. When financial planning is simple and you are consistent with it, it will actually transform your life. One of the things I love to say is the gap that you have between what you make and what you spend. Many physicians have no gap. The bigger the gap that you have, that is the definition of freedom. Now, why would you want to have any kind of freedom as a physician? I mean, why wouldn't you want to be handcuffed to your job the rest of your life? I mean, isn't that what we want? To be forced to work until we're 65 or 70? I mean, is that the goal? Is that y'all's goal? No? Oh, no. You want to have the right to make choices in your life. Okay, great. Well, then that's what we're talking about here, is we want you to be able to make choices. And let me just tell you, if you haven't thought about what financial independence would mean to you, let me explain what it means to a lot of physicians, especially that are my age, coming into their mid-careers. These are physicians who decide maybe they don't want to take all the call that they're being forced to take. Maybe these are physicians that want to go to 80%. Maybe these are physicians that want to set themselves up for the ability to retire by the time they're 55. Maybe it's a physician who wants to be able to take a sabbatical every 6 or 7 years. This is what we're talking about. This is what financial independence means. It's not just I think sometimes people, because I love teaching people how to save. I am not a money miser. I'm not just trying to make piles of money, right? That's not what this is about. This is about building a pile of money so that you have choices. Maybe you don't know what those choices are that you want right now, but I promise you they will be defined in 15 years. Now, what happens? Why is it that 50% of physicians experience burnout? Do y'all know? I mean, burnout, literally the definition of burnout is having a situation you don't like and you can't leave it. And I mean, no one's forcing anyone to do a job, but the reason people are doing the jobs and the way they're doing the jobs is because they have to make their mortgage payment. I was talking to a mortgage lender the other day who has physicians who will occasionally call him up and ask for a 3 or 4 day extension on their mortgage payment. That is a recipe for burnout. That means that you have to have that next paycheck, and that will cause burnout. Okay, this is, these are, so I told you about the mortgage lender, but here are a few others. Burnout can be from not seeing the finish line. Could you imagine if you are working and you don't know when you can stop working? What if you did a financial plan right now before you're even making any money? And you do a financial plan and you're able to say, you know what, I'd like to save in a way where I can stop working by the time I'm 55, by the time I'm 60. And then does that mean if you have enough money to stop working at age 55, does that mean you're forced to stop working? No. So the problem is right now, I'm talking to a bunch of people that love their jobs. Like you're at the beginning of your career. You're real excited, right? So it's really hard to convince you to get passionate about saving for retirement because maybe you're like, well, I'm not sure I ever want to retire. But I promise you, if you know you have a finish line, I promise even from day one, you're going to find value in that. Um, Feelings of general chaos. Apologize for the typo on that. My little AI did not catch that. So sorry about that. And then also a feeling of having no options. That is burnout, having absolutely no options. Burnout and financial dependence are absolutely best friends. So let's go to enemy number one, and it's the only enemy you're ever going to face when it comes to money, and that is the brain. Your brain is going to be responsible for spending every single dollar that you spend. And if you're not cognizant of this, then you're going to assume that when you get out and you go from making what, 70,000, 80,000 right now to making 250, 350, 400, 500, $1 million a year, right? 500,000 to $1 million a year. You're going to assume there is no possible way you can spend all that money. You won't even have the imagination for it. But let me just say, we see people who have indeed transitioned from living paycheck to paycheck on $70,000 or $80,000 to paycheck on $1 million a year. If I actually had not personally seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. But now that I've personally seen it and seen it over and over and over, I'm like, oh, this is very, very real. And what's cool is because we know where it's happening in the brain, we absolutely can trick the brain. It's the most amazing thing in the world if you do this now. If you wait even 3 months after you make your big duck pay, let's say you're like, too busy. I got so much to do. I got my interviews, I've got my HR packet, I got to move. And you're like, I can't. Too late. You need to be doing this planning now and know exactly where every dollar is going to go that first paycheck. I promise you. You don't want to mess around with this. What's crazy about it is if you get it wrong, you get it wrong for life. Isn't that insane? Because what are you going to do? Like, okay, so let's say you come out, you buy the $2 million house, you buy the cars, put the kids in private school. What do you do when you 6 months into that go, oh my God, there's no money. Like, do you move? Do you sell a car? Do you say, hey kids, sorry, I know you love that school, but hey, I gotta pull you out? No, you won't. So when I say if you don't do it right away, I mean it. Like it has to be done before you make your first paycheck. So it's the basal ganglia that's responsible for all this. It's not the prefrontal cortex. That's where people make the mistake. They think I can just think hard enough about money and it'll be all fine. Your prefrontal cortex is not what's making decisions about money. It's back there in that caveman brain. It's back there in the limbic system. And it has one job. So imagine you're a caveman, right? There's a field full of berries. Your basal ganglia is like, man, you eat those berries right now, gather them all because we may not eat for another month, right? Gather all the berries, eat them all. The problem is now we have fields of berries at our disposal all the time. You can buy as many berries as you want on Amazon at 3 a.m. You always have access to berries, right? And so your brain is still operating back as if we are about to run out. Its one job is to look at your checking account and see, oh, there's more there. And it wants to spend every last dollar. Now, I'll show you 90 people who 100%, whatever hits their paycheck, they're going to spend it all and not even realize how it happened. And you'll show me 10 people who still have pretty much how much money went in there because they have a scarcity mindset. It is a very powerful response to this, but let me just say it is also not healthy. So we have to guard ourselves from scarcity mindset using the same tools as guarding ourselves from spending all our money. The other brain activity that we have to actually look at is a phenomenon called the set point theory of happiness, which is a phenomenal adaptive piece of our brains. So basically, the idea is we all have this, level set point, of happiness. Like mine might be a little higher, yours might be a little lower, but we all come back. We all have like a neutral, right? And so if something really terrible happens, we're going to drop. We are going to feel physical pain. We're going to feel unhappy. But the adaptive nature of our brains is that, even if something really horrible, tragic happens, within 6 months, within a year, we can come back to neutral. The problem is that basal ganglia is like, think how happy we're going to be. Jesse, in that Porsche Cayenne, we would be so happier. We would actually be happier. We would. If we went out and bought a Porsche, we'd be happy. The problem is that we won't be happy for long, right? It won't derive continuous happiness. And so the issue there is so you go out and buy it, and then you're happy, you come back to level, and then your brain's like, so what's next? So then if you bought another Porsche Cayenne, is it going to be just as happy? No, it needs something bigger. So think about the fallacy of what's happening. So I learned this term at Cedars-Sinai. The residents were telling me they have this thing called the resident exhale. Have you heard of this? Okay, I had never heard of it before, but apparently you've been so deprived, and so many of y'all are deprived. I cannot believe how much training y'all are going through. But think about it, you have 4 years of med school, 7 years of training for some of y'all, and then you come out and you're like, oh no, I am going to spend all the things. I am not going to worry about money. I'm not going to pinch pennies. I am just going to live. I'm going to exhale. I'm going to buy all the things. I get it. I get it. But here's the fallacy in that, right? So real estate agents are like, yes, resident exhale right now. Let's go tour some neighborhoods and look at some $2 million houses. I realize that's kind of a shack in where y'all live, but that's a lot of money to me. I have seen the real estate listings. I get it. But I mean, it is what it is. So you go buy the $2 million, small bungalow, and then you go buy a Porsche Cayenne, and then you buy your spouse a Porsche Cayenne, and then, you sign up for a $50,000 European vacation. So you're basically burning your happiness level, right? All in one fell swoop. So you've burned it all. But then the problem is you come back to that set point. And it's not like you give your Cayenne back. It's not like you turn your house in. No, you've now adapted your happiness level to those things. Do you see the problem there? So, some people talk about living like a resident. And if I was a resident, I'd be like, why would I do that? That sounds terrible. Why would I live like a resident when I can live like a really well paid doctor? Doesn't make sense to me. But now I kind of see I think this makes sense. So live like a resident, but take a $20,000 vacation when you start making your big dog pay, right? Live like a resident and then, pay off your student loans and get that off your check. Like there are things you can do that you can incrementally add this happiness, but don't burn it all in that first year, right? And then your brain's like, what's next? You're like, well, oh, I'm already spending all my money. There is no what's next, right? Okay. So this is what you're signing up for. If you choose not to do a financial plan after this session, and once you know, you can't not know this now. All of you now know you have to run a financial plan. You do it yourself, you do it on the back of a napkin, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. But once you know, because if you don't do it, this is what you're going to live, right? So you're going to have all this money dumping into your account, you're going to pay your bills, and you're going to spend the rest maybe and break even, and then something's going to come up like a vacation, something's going to come up, and then guess what? You're going to find yourself in credit card debt. You're going to find yourself going to the bank and asking what their personal loan rates are. If you find yourself asking a bank what their personal loan rates are, things are not going well. Okay. And then now we're talking about a life of chaos. And this is what's crazy to me. Life is hard. Like marriage can be hard. Kids can be hard. There can be health stress in your life. We've seen health things happen to residents and physicians. But here's the deal. Finances can either be stressful or they can be helpful. They don't have to be stressful. If you have a big old emergency fund where you can live on it for 6 months, that will literally make you happier in life. If you know that money is going to your retirement accounts, that is the opposite of financial stress, right? If you don't have credit card debt, that is the opposite of financial stress. So it's like choose one. Which one do you want? Financial stress or do you want financial stability? I mean, it's amazing. But we are not consciously choosing financial stress, but coming out, this is what happens. We derive ourselves at financial stress. Okay, no more. So I have literally painted you. This is not the bad case scenario. I've painted you the physician base case scenario. Okay. So do you want to know how to not do that and how to make finances actually be happy in your life? Yes, this is it. It is this simple, folks. You literally trick the brain and look at what you do. You just get the money out. That's all you do. You just literally get the money out before you can see it. Hence why we do this process right now. Is I'm going to help you guys calculate exactly how much money needs to come out of your paycheck. And I don't care if you stuff it under a mattress. Get the money out of your paycheck. You can literally have HR siphon the money out for you. It does not have to hit your paycheck, and you will never see it. You'll never miss it. Okay? This is it. You pay yourself first. So as you see, there's a little blog accompanying this. Also, if you scan this QR code, we'll also email you this blog. This is the pay yourself first. Just get the money out. It works. Okay, so now how much are you going to pay yourself first? That is the question. So if you want to retire by the time you are 65, if you do not want to be forced to work past the age of 65, then this is the table you're going to use. So if you want, just for now, even if you're like, no, I'd like to be able to retire by the time I'm 55, that's going to be the next slide, but you can go ahead and start doing the calculation here. So the way this thing works is we need to figure out when you get out of training, I want to know how much money you will have in your life at that point. Most of you, that number is 0. But some of you might have had a previous career. You might have a retirement account. Excuse me 1 second. So you might have a retirement account or you might have an inheritance. That's fantastic. That'll take you really far, right? But most people don't have that. And so this is a real easy calculation. So you're at a 0 times, meaning how much money you have as a, divided by how much money you plan to make is going to be 0. Now, let's say that you are like you have some money. Let's say you have $1 million and you know that when you get out, you're going to make $500,000. Now, these are not grounded in cardiology averages. I just don't like to do public math, so I'm going to do easy math. So 1 million divided by 500,000 means that you have 2 times your income in savings. So then you would find yourself over here in that third column, that 2 times. Okay? So then what you want to do right now is think, well, how old am I going to be when I get out? Am I going to be 30? Am I going to be 35 when I come out of training and start my first job? And that is where you are going to derive your first, the biggest number you will ever calculate in your life. It's going to be the most important number you ever have in your life. It's right there. Now, finances are private, right? We don't want any, I mean, we can tell anybody how big of a car, how big a house we have, what car we have, and we can even tell people what we paid for it. But God forbid we tell people how much we have saved. Taboo. That's where we draw the line. I want to change that. I can't change that, but I can change this. You can absolutely tell people what your savings rate is. If I tell you I have a 35% savings rate right now, have I told you anything about my wealth? Do you know anything? No, no. So I encourage you to right now calculate the savings rate and discuss it among each other. Talk about it. Talk about it in the water cooler. Be like, what was your savings rate? I calculate 25%. I calculate most physicians are going to need to save about 25% of their gross pay. Now, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if anybody wants to share it, you can. But I want to first, before we go into that, do you know how, do y'all feel comfortable with how this table is working? Have you been able to find your savings rate? Great. Awesome. Okay, now who's interested? Oh, yes, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. So this is based on how much I have saved currently, and then like whatever my future earning potential is in my first job. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, like, if let's say you've been saving into the Cedar Sinai retirement plan, and you'll end up with $25,000 or 30, that's basically not going to calculate. So I mean, it's easier just to say zero given the earnings that you are likely to earn, right? It's not going to move the needle. So it's really only if you're in that 1 times income that you're really going to move columns. So if you have 350,000 saved, that kind of thing, which we have seen that. We've seen people, especially people who have an inheritance or who are kind of later in life going to med school. We have seen that. Okay, so y'all have your savings rate? Yes. Okay. Now let's say you're like, well, wouldn't it be awesome to be able to fire up my savings? Have you heard that term, fire? Financial independence, retire early. It's a movement. Actually, it's a movement of my generation coming out of the 0809 crisis. A bunch of people like me said, I'm not going to have this fragility in my life. All of it, there's high unemployment coming out of that crisis. And so a lot of us became super savers. And so a lot of us now are kind of able to retire. It's pretty crazy because we started this back in 0809. So if you wanted to follow in the millennials' footsteps, the old millennial Gen Zers' footsteps, you could find your fire number. And let me tell you, if you sign up for this, you have to do it from the very first paycheck. You can't accidentally stumble into this. Like, you can't be like, oh, I remember that presentation and I've been living on my big doc pay for a year or two. I think I want to retire early. Ship sailed. I mean, we've seen people do it, but it's very difficult. You would have to know you want to do this from the beginning because you're basically signing up for a very middle class life. Nothing wrong with it, but you're going to drive probably the car you drive now. I mean, we've seen some physicians driving, I've got one that drives a 1998 Honda Accord. Great. Works awesome. But that's what you're signing up for. So for some people, they're like, nope, I can't imagine it, don't want it. But for some people, this is very compelling. And this is a whole heck of a lot of freedom in your life. Okay, so have you calculated your fire number just for fun? Awesome, awesome. Okay, so here's how you apply your magic number. So this is the magic number. This is the number, right? So what you do is you apply this savings rate to your expected gross pay. Now, your gross annual pay is going to be the pay you anticipate making before you've taken out any money in taxes, before you've taken out any money in benefits. That would be your net pay. We calculate your savings rate on your gross pay. So another way to put it is this is the pay that they're going to quote you. They say, hey, we're going to pay you a salary of $400,000 a year. That's the number I want you to use. Any questions on that? Now, a lot of people get paid RVUs and they come in like quarterly lumps or semi-annual. So what you have to do is you have to kind of talk to other physicians and find out what a reasonable amount would be. And then you want to and then you can calculate it on that number. So you don't want to calculate it on 300,000 and then you're going to get bonus out another 200,000 because then you'll be seriously undersaving, right? So you need to make sure you're really capturing all of your income. And then if you do any 1099 work, any locums, any of that kind of stuff, that also needs to be put in here. You need to be saving that percentage on every dollar that is coming into your life. Now, if you're married, the spouse also needs to be saving this same amount, even if they're not making that much money, because you're driving up your tax rate. And we'll get to that in a second. Okay, any questions on?
Yeah,
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna, so that makes sense. So you want to, even if you have like alternate income streams, we're not just talking about your like hospital paid salary. We're talking about sort of like all sources.
So glad you really, so I can't emphasize this enough. So some people will say to me, oh shoot, I did exactly what you said. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I just need to make more money. Now, if I had a choice between making more money or spending less, I would choose spending less every time. Because when you make more money, you have to factor in saving incrementally. You have to factor in your tax rate is marginal. And so you're applying maybe a 32 or 34% tax rate. Plus, if you're in the state of California, 11% there. I mean, when you look at, you almost have to make double of what you could cut in savings. Does that make sense? In incremental dollars, it is always better to spend less than to try to make more. It's incredible. So yes, you have to calculate, because a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I'll just, I need to save 50,000 more. I'll just make 50,000 more." No, you'd have to like make 100,000 more and save all of it. I mean, that's just crazy, right? So we find that people get into burnout a lot of times because they'll work extra shifts trying to catch up, and it just doesn't work. Okay, so now this is where I really want to get across the magic of compound interest. So when you look at the difference between starting now or now, when I say now, I want you to know, I mean the moment you're making the big duck pay, not like now. I mean now in like 2 years or 3 years, whatever your timeline is. So some people will come out and think, oh, well, I'm 30 years old or 35 years old. I've got 30 years. I got plenty of time to save. Let's disabuse that notion here. So if you look at this chart and you can see that the blue line is if you started at age 35. The brown line is if you started at age 45 and worked until 65. So you can see here that you've got 30 years of saving the same amount. So what I did in this chart was I kept every single thing the same. So I took out inflation. I took out a lot of confounding factors. and just had you saving the same dollar amount and getting a 6% rate of return on your money in the market. And you can see that you almost cut your amount that you end up in half by chopping off 1/3 of your savings years. So when you look at that, what you realize is that how much you put in, the rate of return, I mean, yeah, those are important, but they're not as important as starting now. They're not as important as time. So if you look at these first like decade of saving, and you're like, wow, that is really boring. It's, there's nothing fun about it. What's incredible is over time, how the saving, your money makes money on your money makes money on your money. And it's not a linear process. So a lot of times people come out and say, I just don't get it. I just keep putting money in. It seems like the same amount that I put in. But the magic of compound interest happens around year 15. So what's also interesting is when you look at when you put money in and you don't stuff it under a mattress, please don't stuff it under a mattress, but you actually let it go to work for you. And this is where I want to call out there is some gender bias here that we have to face. A lot of women wait for perfect information before investing. And that makes sense. You're like, no, I need to read 15 books and listen to 20 podcasts before I'm going to make a decision on, how to invest. But you could read 15 books and listen to 20 podcasts and not feel any more confident in it. Investing has risk, but it also has a reward. And this is where you really need to understand why we have to invest. We have to invest for the long term because we would have to save so much more money. We need our money working while we're asleep. We need CEOs of manufacturing companies running those lines while we're asleep or working, right? And those CEOs, their job is to make you money. That's what's happening, right? When you own stocks in the stock market, you're owning businesses, right? It's not like crypto where you're like, oh, I own something. I just hope someone pays me more for it. That is gambling. This is investing, okay? So you can see the difference between the blue line, the dark blue line, and the light blue line is basically a huge difference in how much money you end up with, right? So in one case, you end up with, 1.5 million. In another case, you end up with almost 4 million, right? And that is compound interest. Your money making money on your money, making money on your money. Now, a lot of people like to talk about the stock market, and that's fine. But the problem with people talking about the stock market is they're not talking about it to invest in the way we just talked about it. They're talking about it to win. And let me just tell you, you can't win in the stock market. It won't work. And so you're going to be face to face with other physicians who are going to tell you all these fantastic ideas that they have. I mean, this guy was calling a crash in the stock market. People are calling it right now. Could it crash tomorrow? Absolutely. But will it? I don't know. But this guy really knew. He really knew. Liberation Day tariffs. He had been calling a market downturn on LinkedIn, and man, he was right. And that stock market absolutely went down on the liberation tariffs. And then look what happened. Stock market went down, and then it went up 24%. 24%. No one knows. People are going to sound very sure that guy was made a fool in that stock market, right? No one knows. No one absolutely knows. And here's the deal. There are professionals in it. They go to Harvard, they go to Yale, they come out, and all they do is they pick stocks. And let me just tell you, 90% of them underperform the average stock market. 90% of actively managed mutual funds underperform the stock market. Here's my point. If you saw this stock chart and you said, this would be what my money would do from 2011 to present, what would you think about that? Let's say you were a doctor during this and you were depositing $50,000, $75,000 a year. What would be the lesson from this chart? Put your money in, right? This is an annualized rate of return of double digits, right? Would you want to play around with any of this? Yeah, the stock market went down a few times. Would you want to play around with this? No, no, no. Because if you messed around and you got out, if you took your money out trying to time it and you missed growth and you sat in cash, you end up with less money. Check this out. It's terrible when your money goes down. It's terrible. 0809, awful. Worse. Man, people still talk about how horrible those years were. Oh, geez. Look at this chart from 08 to present. Horrible or just a blip, y'all? The lesson here, when I told you at the very beginning, simple beats complex, I'm not kidding around. When we say we teach people to manage their own investments, it's because there is nothing to do except just throw your money in. That's it. You don't mess around with it. You don't try to sell and time. The professional sure can't do it. Why would you, as a working physician, want to mess around with it? I can't do it. I have a Harvard master's. I would never try to time the market. Everybody is saying, oh God, the stock market's going to crash. I am not getting into cash. I do not know what the stock market is going to do. Simple beats complex every single time. You just get the money and you put it into your tax efficient vehicles, which is what we're going to get. You invest early, you invest often, you invest to grow your wealth. You're not investing to win. If there's a guy at a cocktail party that is talking about winning, that's not the game you're playing. You are just trying to grow your money. Does that make sense? There's two ways to look at investing. One is to win, one is to grow your money. Just invest to grow your money, because if you invest to win, you will lose. Statistically, you will lose. Does this make sense? Okay. Where we can win is tax efficiency. Now, this is where I want you to be dancing on the tables. I want you bragging at cocktail parties about this, okay? This is where you win. It's when you say, oh my God, I am going to have a tax bill my first year out of training that is going to be the same size as my entire salary last year. I promise. If you look at your first pay stub, you will say, oh, I get this. Okay. So where you win is you say, Uncle Sam, we're going in business together, because here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this deal that you have with me where I can invest in this ridiculously named retirement account called a 403B or a 401k or 457. And we're going to go in business together. And here's why. You are going to cut me a deal where I'm not going to pay taxes on the money I put in that account. And I'm going to pay your taxes back later, way later. Meanwhile, we're going to grow that money that I would have otherwise put into taxes. Do you see the power of this? Do you see what I'm talking about here? So look at the difference. We ran these numbers. So you have $50,000, same deal that we had before. But in one deal, you're doing the 50,000, and if you're in academic medicine, which both of you are, you have access to typically a 403B and a 457. You can put almost 50,000. I'm using 50 because it's a round number. It's not exactly 50. It's around there. So you can put about $50,000 between those two accounts, and you and Uncle Sam are in business together. So basically, you have more money going into your retirement accounts than you would otherwise. Because otherwise, if you had to pay taxes on that 50,000 at your marginal tax bracket of like 32%, you shave that money off, that's more like 3,500. So instead of putting 50,000 in savings, you're putting 3,500 in savings because you have to pay taxes on that money before you could save. So in these other two scenarios, you have a Roth account and you have a taxable brokerage account. That's where you're like, oh, I see a commercial on Fidelity. I can open an account. That's a brokerage account, okay? Now, in the pre-tax account, as I mentioned, you and Uncle Sam are in business together because your tax bill will come due one day. But you see that this line, even at age 65, continues to swing upward, even though Uncle Sam has taken his share. And that's because you don't take all the money out. You just take part of your money out, right? And then you pay your marginal taxes, and I'm going to get to these marginal tax rates, on a smaller amount. So you end up much richer, much richer in this scenario, okay? Now, You can only do so much. Some physicians can only put about 23,500 into one account. If you work for, say, like a private cardiology group, they may just have one account and that's it. You can only put, so let's say you have to save $100,000 a year to have enough money. You can put 23,500. The rest is going to have to go into probably a taxable brokerage account. Okay? That's fine. Now, some of you can put money into a Roth. And as you can see, a Roth is a little bit better than a taxable, because the reason is with the taxable, when you go to take that money out, you have to pay taxes. So you had to pay income taxes before you invested, and then you're going to have to pay taxes on the growth of that money. So you're taxed really on both ends. With a Roth, you're saying to the federal government, oh, great, I'll pay my taxes now, but I'm never paying taxes again. So as you see, as you're making withdrawals, your money can continue to grow at a faster pace because you're not paying taxes on those withdrawals. How much money you're taking out is exactly how much money you get to use. You're not having to assume taxes. Okay, here is why tax efficiency is the most important way to hit your magic number. You and Uncle Sam, by not having to pay him taxes on that money that you're putting into your retirement accounts, that money that you're putting into your retirement accounts is going to be your marginal tax number. Okay, so let me explain. The first 11,000, or the first, well, 14,000 that you make up to the standard deduction, you pay zero taxes. But then you're going to hit these different tax brackets. So the first 11,600 after that, you're going to pay 10,000, or you're going to pay 10% taxes. On the next crop, that 11,600 to 47,000, you're going to pay a 12% tax on that, on those dollars. So that's what's happening in your paycheck. Now, HR is calculating this for you, your payroll, but this is how they're deriving the taxes. So if you're quoted a salary of $500,000 a year, you're at a 35% tax bracket. So do you see? So when you say to Uncle Sam, I'll take you up on that deal, you're taking 50,000 out of the 35% bracket. Do you see the magic here? It's magical. This is where your passion in money should lie, in your savings rate and in saving on taxes. So, also, let's say you're coming out of training and you're deciding where to live. And let's say you have two states and both are willing to pay you the same salary. It's not the same. It's not the same, because if you work in California and you have a marginal tax bracket at 13% and you go to Tennessee where they have a zero state tax, folks, that's a big difference. So when you're thinking about negotiating, you're going to get lawyers and you're going to go, you need to understand taxes very, very well when you are figuring out where you're going to live and what you're going to make and negotiating that pay. Then this is the best. So we talked about doing a financial plan. You're probably like, I don't even know what do you mean by a financial plan? This is what I mean. We know how much money needs to come out of that first paycheck. Now you can stuff that money under a mattress, as I said, but that's not great because you saw you're going to be missing out on CEOs with manufacturing facilities that are willing to work for you, right? And to make you money while you sleep, or you're a doctor. We want you to do that. So where you put the money is your financial plan. How much you take out and where you put it. Now, you're going to have all these buckets available to you. Lots of buckets where you can throw that money that's not stuffed under a mattress. The bucketing system that I want you to use is the one that leverages the tax efficient waterfall, that tax efficiency. If you believe me that tax efficiency is the most important thing, I want you to follow this tax efficient waterfall. Now, we are not going to go through every one of these because right now I don't know what buckets are available to you. I believe in just-in-time financial literacy. This is completely irrelevant to most of you unless you are literally about to go start your job next month. But here's all you need to know is you now know that you're going to get access to all these blogs and you're going to get access to the tax efficient waterfall that we're going to fall and we're going to send you. And actually, we have examples on how to apply it. And so what that means is the moment you get your contract in hand and you see, oh, I have a 403B available to me and I have a 457. My God, take them. If you don't even understand or it's not clear, I want you to take this tax efficient waterfall to HR and say, can you help me solve this? Because I have an amount of money I need to save in my head and I need to get it out of my first paycheck. And I want you to help me apply this in rank order. So, how much are you going to match my money? Because free money is free money. So they'll put money into your retirement plan, right? So you want to start there. So at minimum, max out the free money. If they're going to match you 50% up to 10%, you better save 10% into those retirement plans. Next, do you have student loan debt? Let's get those suckers paid off or forgiven through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Now, I am happy to stick around after this session and answer any questions on student loans. We are student loan experts. Anybody listening to this, because we don't have a lot of people live, I will say this. Watch this session within the next 48 hours and send me any questions you have on student loans and I will answer them. So high interest debt would be my next priority. If you have credit card debt, slay it. Next one, health savings accounts. They have a triple tax advantage. I'm not going to go through it. I could spend 2 hours just waxing poetic about health savings accounts as retirement plans. I know that it's going to be mind-blowing to a lot of people. You just have to trust me on this. I have a whole blog written on HSAs that we'll be sending you. HSAs are an incredible, incredible retirement account. The government didn't realize they were making a retirement account when they made HSAs, not FSAs, HSAs. Next, finish maxing out every work retirement plan available to you. Now, some work retirement plans are going to have additional savings beyond that called mega backdoor Roths, where you've maxed out all your pre-tax money, but then the hospital says, but wait, there's more. You can put another $30,000 into after tax, like the after tax 403B, and then do a conversion to a Roth. Again, that could be a whole like 5-hour session. It's real simple. Just do it. You don't need to understand it. It's fantastic. You get Roth money, you get to invest it. We do have more information on the topic though. If you do want to understand it more, it's fantastic. And then finally, yeah, sure, do a taxable brokerage account. Nothing wrong with that. They're great for retirement because they don't have rules on when you can withdraw. They're wonderful. I love taxable brokerage accounts. Don't be mad at them just because you're having to pay taxes on both ends. They're still great accounts. This is a resource. Keep in mind that these are 2025 limits. The IRS actually just came out with their final limits for 2026. I didn't have time to change them, but adjust them for 2026. Again, most of you are not getting out right now, so this is not relevant to you in 2026 anyway. So I'm not going to go through these. I do have a case study in here in the slides for, someone who, has their emergency fund built. If you don't have an emergency fund built, I would go ahead and slide that, even though it's not tax efficient. I would have 6 months, I would try to build those first 5 years, 6 months of savings. Yes, it's going to set you back on your saving for retirement, but do it, right? So this one assumes that you have that 6 months of savings already. So you can see how we've kind of applied this with someone who has 400,000, a savings rate of 25%, and needs to save 100,000. So here is wrapping back. So are y'all with me? We want to save the right amount, right? And we want to put it in the way that we're going to get us the most bang for the buck, right? And we know we want to invest. We don't want to invest and try to play with our money and try to win. We just want whatever our hospital says, this is our target date fund. This is our default investment. Yes, sign me up. That's great. We're not going to play with our money. We're going to invest it for the long term. I want you to not skip this last step. Because remember that basal ganglia? Well, it turns out there's more going on than we realize. So the basal ganglia wants to spend all the money. So we want to make sure none of this money ever hits our account. But we want to go a step further. The prefrontal cortex is an amazing part of our brain, but it can only be passionate about something for about 3 months. This is why like New Year's resolutions fizzle out around April. There's brain science behind that, right? And it's good because we need to have multiple things that our brains focus on and figure out. So some physicians will come to me and be like, no, 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 no. I don't want this to be automatic. I want to be mindful about my savings. I want to see it coming out. I want to be mindful about paying my credit card bill. No, 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 no. Automate it. Automate everything. Sure, if you want to be mindful, log in and look, make sure it happened. But I need you to commit that every single financial decision that you make, you are going to make sure that it is automated. So, for instance, let's say you don't have an emergency fund and you want to put $500 a month into an emergency fund. Don't be like, oh, I'll just transfer it every month. No, you won't. I want you to go to HR and say, here's my account number and routing number for my high yield savings account at American Express. Can you please put $500 a month into it? That's what I mean. Every single thing that you decide needs to be automated. Now, I'm not going to this because this could be another 2 hour conversation. So all you have to do is pay yourself first. You know what? You can be broke on the rest. It doesn't matter. You can be in and out of credit card debt if you want. That doesn't really matter. You'll still end up with enough money. You'll still be fine. But why do that? Why cause yourself financial stress? So, what we are sending you, if you scan the QR code that we have here, is we have a physician guide to the rest of the system. So, in the guide, I still, if you're not a verbal learner, audio, whatever learner, if you need to read it, we have an actual like read it. So we have the how to calculate your savings rate tutorial and the tax efficient waterfalls in there. But most importantly, most importantly, we have this system in there, which is a cash flow system, which guess what? You've got cash flows right now. You can actually apply this right now and get good at your money so that when you come out and you're making the big doc pay, you have a budgeting system. So this budgeting system works. You open up little squirrel savings accounts, you put the money in there, you have it come out before you see the money. And then if you have a home repair, if you want to take a vacation, I mean, y'all need them for interviews, right? Like, because you'll travel some, like you have reasons to start this system right now. So we're actually going to send you the guide for the system and then a little spreadsheet that has a resident, training fellow tab and then a big doc pay tab. So you can be doing immediate financial planning right now as a resident and then also do your planning. If you kind of know what you're going to be making, start the planning now. Know how much you're going to pay yourself first, and then you can start playing with your what can you afford in a house? What can you afford in a car? You can kind of play with those numbers. So we are right at the finish line. I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions. But most importantly, here is if you want to grab the QR code and go ahead and sign up for this, and we will send you the slides from today and the little things that we promised you.
Sarah Catherine, this was just incredible. I feel like I've never been so engaged and inspired by a financial planning talk. So thank you so
Well,
much
thank
for
you.
spending your evening with us. And for anyone who's watching, if you have other talks that you would like to see this year, please reach out to Jacqueline and I, and we'd be happy to help organize them. But Sarah Catherine, really, truly, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for spending your time with us. And we are looking forward to disseminating these resources.
Excellent. You are so welcome. And you are welcome to post my email
Great.
with this recording. And again, until November 20th, I will take any questions on student loans because there are some very specific things that need to be done. And remember, physicians in California are now eligible for PSLF. They were not 2 years ago, but they are now. So it's very exciting. And you're all eligible now because you work in academic medicine. But once you're out and you're in a contracting organization that contracts with the hospital, you will be eligible then as well. So if anybody has any questions about PSLF and repayment plans, you're welcome to send those to me.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.